Welcome, everybody.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here. Waking up so early, get your day going. Yeah. So we got Kathy and Scott this morning is going to give us a little talk this morning. So who'd like to go first? Kathy, would you like to go first?
Certainly.
Kathy's
Thank
got
you.
slides. I don't really have anything besides myself.
Oh, okay.
But you're wonderful just as you are.
You are, Scott. We like looking at you. It's all right.
Okay. Can I take control of the screen and show my slides?
I believe so. I don't have that control
Yeah,
on my
it says
side.
Kathy is
so.
co-host now. Go for it.
Got it. Thank you, ma'am. Okie doke. If all goes well, I can get this thing to move. My name is Kathy Bazan. I'm with the Business Recovery Center. I meet with folks at the Tualatin Chamber and throughout the South Metro area. I come to this work from having done 6 years of small business counseling throughout Arizona and Washington, now Oregon. During that 6 years, I helped my clients gain access to over $16 million in capital, whether that came in the form of grants or loans or whatever. In addition, I helped them start businesses and hire over 450 employees. So I'm here to help small businesses get back on their feet. Now, the question I was asked was, when should you hire a specialist? And let's see here. Okay. It's not letting me move slides, so there we go. Okay, figured out which button it was. I'm a little unusual in the fact that I am both a certified SCORE mentor, which means I'm allowed to work with businesses up to $1 million in annual sales. But I'm also certified by the Edward Lowe Foundation, so I'm allowed to work with businesses up to $10 million in sales. I've won state and national awards for what I've done. The biggest thing that I find when I'm talking to a CEO about whether they need to hire an employee or a specialist is trying to get them to let go of that steering wheel. Because the CEO, as a solo entrepreneur, has been very used to controlling everything. They've done everything from accounting to social media to janitorial services. And so trying to get them to let go of that steering wheel is the first thing I work on. What I normally do with a CEO or anybody within the company with whom I'm working is to conduct a skills inventory. What do they like to do? What do they not like to do? What would they really prefer to run away and hide from? And, everybody has those topics. So I conduct a skills inventory with that individual based on my career previously as a career counselor. What I'm looking for are patterns in the CEO's behavior, in their work history, and trying to gain an idea of what it is that they really feel that they excel at within this business. Many of us, whether we're a CEO or not, we're left-brained or we're right-brained. The right-brained creatives often can't understand what accountants are saying. The accountants and the financial people often can't understand the reason for having social media marketing and advertising. So I look at the people with whom I'm working, figure out where their strengths are, and then we start building. Depending upon the CEO and their personality, really, I might suggest that the CEO hire somebody in their area of expertise. The reason for this is the CEO can then tell if the person that they have hired or contracted with is actually doing the job that they're hired to do, that they're not frittering away their time doing things that are unnecessary or doing them the wrong way for the way the company needs to have it done. In this way, the CEO can quietly monitor the specialist or the employee and then gain trust that the person they've hired is able to do the work. Once they can establish trust in that first individual, it's much easier to get a second one hired at that point. On the other hand, if I encounter a CEO who is just absolutely overworked and frazzled, I won't go with this hire your strength. I'll go with the opposite, hire your opposite. Take that set of tasks off your desk, turn them over to somebody you trust, and then concentrate on the parts of the business that are left that you didn't turn over to a specialist. So, for instance, a CEO who might be very strong in accounting or engineering might absolutely hate social media. So I'll work with them to help them find a social media strategist who is willing to do their work and who is willing to do it at a high enough quality that Google will allow the company to increase their Google page ranking. Third scenario is that the CEO may need to hire a consultant or specialist to accelerate growth. I've worked with companies where the company needed to expand the sales department itself. And so the CEO was then willing to hire a full-time sales manager to just go out there and make those sales and get that company going. This allows the company to grow to the next level. When should a CEO consider hiring staff or contracting with a specialist? Well, we went over a couple of these. Does the CEO feel that the CEO is overworked? Are they taking work home in the evening? Are they not taking a break? Are they not taking weekends off or a vacation? If that's the scenario, it's now time to hire somebody or contract with somebody. And especially this is the case if there is revenue to cover the cost. Until there's revenue to cover the cost, we're really kind of stuck. Your other option is to hire an intern, which you can do through a local college or even through a work source program. One of my clients is the CEO of a drone company. He had the opportunity to land a very large contract with the federal government. We actually ended up hiring him a team of engineers about 6 months before we had actually scheduled it out because he needed to build these birds. So sometimes it is the market that makes you grow the company a little faster or maybe in a different direction than you were initially anticipating. Okay, pros and cons to hiring an employee. Why would you hire an employee versus hiring a specialist? Well, if you've got an employee, the employee is always available to you. They're dependable and they're consistent. In addition, because they're an employee, especially if you put this into their employment contract, you, as the CEO, own the copyrights and the patents to any of the intellectual property that they create. If you don't put it in the contract, you might not be able to legally enforce this. So I'm just giving you a heads up. If this person is your employee, you have a greater level of control. You can say what project they need to work on, what order they need to do things, and what deadlines are. So you've got a lot more influence over when this individual gets you that work that you need. Hopefully, the employee is loyal to you. Because they're not working for a slew of other clients, they can focus on your needs and what you're trying to get accomplished. Okay, there is a downside. Not only will you be paying salary, you may possibly be paying benefits as well, such as vacation, sick leave, and insurance. There are costs to having an employee that you don't have with a specialist. The other problem is that depending upon your budget, you may only be able to afford a generalist, somebody who can do a lot of things but isn't a specialist in one particular area. So you have to look at how much money are you willing to offer and what kind of a person can you bring into the organization for that budget. Okay, pros and cons of hiring an outside specialist. If we did one, we need to do the other. The wonderful thing about a specialist is that you're only going to pay for the hours you use. So if you don't need a lot of work, this may be the way to go. Or if you've got a dinky budget, this may be the way to go. Also, there's no overhead costs like benefits, buying the person a computer, setting up a workspace. Being as they are not your employee, they may have a very objective perspective as to what's going on in the company, what's going on with your particular project there. Okay, there's a downside. The consultant is probably working for a number of different folks all at once. And therefore, when you ask for work from that consultant, they may have priorities higher on their list other than you. So you don't have that level of control, consistency, dependability, and availability. Upsides and downsides. You need to decide what your budget is, what you can afford, and what will that buy you in the marketplace. All right, factors to consider when you're hiring an employee or finding a consultant. It's a teeter-totter. Now, as you see here, I've got a mouse and an elephant. You can decide which one's the mouse and which one's the elephant. The fewer the hours you need or the smaller your budget, the more you might want to hire a consultant. But if you need consistent availability, you're probably going to want an employee. If intellectual property is involved, the consultant actually owns the copyright and the patents to the intellectual property. They create unless you put it in the contract. And even then, what you're doing is you're licensing their copyright. You don't own their copyright. Huge difference. Okay, in my career, I have found that these are the areas that people often bring in new talent first, whether that's an employee or whether that's a consultant. So often it's accounting, bookkeeping, QuickBooks comes under this as well, website design, social media, or even a recruiter who becomes your point person for building the rest of the team and finding the rest of your team members. Thank you very much. If you have questions, let me know. You can reach out to me at either of these two, the email address or my cell phone. I'm happy to have one-on-one appointments with any of you. Those appointments are confidential, they're free, and they're unlimited until I run out of hours in the week. Okay, thank you so much, and ask your questions.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. So can we get you quit screen sharing there? Here we go.
Kathy, I had a question for you.
Certainly.
So if I understand it correctly, during this time that you're hired by the County Recovery Center, one of the things that I hear you talking about on the Tualatin Chamber meetings is that there are grants and monies available for businesses right now that maybe haven't been available prior, and that you've been able to find people. Do you want to talk a little bit to that?
Certainly. Thank you for bringing that up. I keep an eye out, I'll put it that way, for grants and loans that are coming up. A couple of things you may want to put on your schedule. You probably already know that there is a Tigard City grant. In addition to that, next Monday, Lowe's, the home improvement store, opens their grant portal for about 24 hours. So you have to move quickly. But it's a $20,000 grant through Lowe's, and they're giving away $55 million. So you, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool.
all of you can apply. It's cool. But that is something I do want everybody to keep on their radar. The other thing is Craft 3, which is the local innovative lender, one of the two local innovative lenders. They have $25,000 loans that are available right now at a 5% interest rate. Those are incredibly easy to get because all you need is a profit and loss statement or a tax return from 2019. And so long as you made $1, you can qualify for that loan. So, either reach out to me or reach out directly to Craft 3. In addition, next week we should have the Washington County grants that are available again, not only for the unincorporated areas, but also the incorporated areas of the county. So yes, we've got a lot going on. If you
Awesome.
want a list of my grants and loans, I'm happy to send it out. Just fire off an email to me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
Okay. Scott, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, a couple different things. Thanks, Kathy. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
One of the things when I start, so in Kathy's listings, we are the specialist or the consultant that's going to come in and do a couple of those things. Actually, we can do 3 of those things on her list: the accounting, the bookkeeping, and the hiring aspect for your company. And that is so you can grow and focus on what you need to do to make your business succeed. The first thing that we do when we come in is say, where are you going? What's your 10-year plan? Where's your business plan? Because if you don't know where you're going, there's a good chance you're not going to get there. And so if you don't have that business plan, if you don't have that set of goals, then you're never going to grow, because you don't know where your holes are. So when you also make that business plan, is what is that business going to look like in 10 years? What are the positions that you need to have? Are they full-time? Are they part-time? Are they fractional? What's the sales department look like? What's the manufacturing look like? What are all these things that the business is going to look like in 10 years? Once you know what that is, then you start working backwards. Okay, how do I get there? What are the resources that I need to get to where I'm going to go? Do I have the right people on the team? Kathy mentioned earlier about the CEO, the business owner, controlling everything. Well, that's how they got to where they are. They had to control everything. Unfortunately, that's not going to get you to the next step. And that's the hardest part. They had to hold on to that steering wheel so hard to get there. You have to pry those fingers off. And that's not a bad thing, because you have ownership in your company. You know everything in your company. Well, that's great when it's a $500,000 company or $1 million company. When it's a $10, $20 million company, you can't. You'll strangle it. You'll kill it before it ever gets there. So you have to start taking hats off. You have to start taking roles and responsibilities away. So get that organizational chart out of what your business is going to look like in 10 years. Write all the positions down. And then back up to today. How many of those hats are you wearing? Kathy had a great couple slides on do you hire your strength or do you hire your weakness? What positions do you need? Do you need a full-time bookkeeper? Probably not. Do you need a full-time accountant? Probably not. Do you need a full-time CFO? Definitely not. Do you a hiring specialist? Another thing that I saw that wasn't on your list, Kathy, was an HR specialist. Oregon has passed, I don't know, 20 to 30 major business human resources type things in the last 10 years that have to be implemented, whether that's sick leave, whether that's OSHA regulations, whether that's the AC, the Affordable Care Act. There's different things that you have to implement correctly. The Equal Pay Act. Are you doing any of these things right? Well, I don't know. I'm an accountant. I'm not an HR specialist, and they are people that you need to hire to make sure that you're doing those things correctly. So those are those other specialists. And a generalist, it's going to take a while for that person to get up to speed. But if you have, let's say, an office manager that's in your that can do a lot of different things with some specialist support over the top of them, they can call an HR person, they can call a CFO, they can call an attorney or something. They have that ability, and then that funnels back to the owner. These are all the things that are great, and then you get good controls out of that as well. So do you know where you're going? And if once you do, then you can start figuring out what are the things that I can offload. There's also a bunch of metrics that you're going to need to, I'm sorry, I'm staring at myself on the side screen here. I got to move that. There. What are the resources that I need that aren't human capital? Like how much do I need a new facility? Do I need a larger office? I'm hiring people. There's a lot of benefits that have to go along with that. I need workspace, I need computers, I need a car, I need blah, blah, blah. Do you have those resources? If not, well, how much is that going to cost and how much can we go get? Because there right now, oddly enough, COVID has put a lot of different grant and lending opportunities out there. There's a lot of businesses that are still making money that can recapitalize right now, which is fantastic. Now you can really set yourself up for the growth that's going to happen, or that this double dip recession is going to happen, one or the other. So we're going to either grow quickly or we're going to dip back into something else. Well, do you have the cash reserves to make sure that you're going to be okay through that? Is that still taking you towards your 10-year goal? Okay, once you know what your 10-year goal is, now we're gonna set a 5-year goal, a 3-year goal, 1-year goal. We're gonna put a budget together for this year to make sure that we're hitting all of your metrics throughout the year. Are you recording things in your financials that you can now pull back out? How are you recording your revenue? Well, if you're not recording your revenue and expenses correctly, then there's no metrics that you can measure yourself to find out, hey, am I on track to meet my 10-year goal? And it's not just, this is the other thing that accountants don't just, well, let me rephrase that. Good accountants don't look at just the financial information. They look at all the information. They look at operations. What is your operating metrics that you need to be reporting on? What are the sales metrics that you need to be reporting on? What is your human capital metrics that you're reporting on? Getting all of that information, consolidating all together in a monthly, weekly, annual, quarterly report, and getting it to the owner so they can say, am I on track? Does this make sense that I'm going to be hitting my 1-year goal so I can hit my 2-year goal, so I can hit my 5-year goal, so I can hit my 10-year goal? Am I on track? If I am on track, great. Am I ahead? Okay, that's good. Then maybe I need to revise my goals. Am I behind? Do I need to revise my goals, or do I need to find out what is working and what isn't working? This is what is where the numbers are important. This is where communication is huge. Are my different departments talking to one another? Because if they're not, you're siloing people out. And anytime you have silos, your business is going to wither. It does not grow well in silos. And breaking all those walls down so people have great communication, that is so key. And that is where the 10-year plan comes in. If you don't know where you're going, that means the rest of your employees don't know where you're going either. And that means everybody has a different priority, because their piece of the business is growing. It's like, I need to do X, Y, and Z to get mine to grow. Well, that might be the exact opposite of what the rest of the business needs. So if everybody's on the same plan and you're all strategically planning together, then you can take the bus wherever you want to go. Or do you have the right people on the bus? Good. Do you know where the bus is going? Great. So as your business is growing, do you have the right resources? So anyway, that's kind of what I want to talk about today is making sure that you know where you're going, what's your plan, and then start working backwards on your resources to get you to where you want to go.
Right, Scott, thank you very much. One of the things you talk about, Scott, that I think a lot of people, a couple of phrases that people are not used to, and I remember this from earlier conversations in groups with you, is talking about fractional versus temporary. If you could just review those two phrases quickly for a moment, because a lot of people are not used to the term fractional.
Okay, well, a fractional, it's kind of it's the hybrid version of an employee and a contractor. Technically, you're a contractor, but you're a long-term resource for that. So you're going to be with that company for a long time to help them grow and succeed and fill in any roles that you need to along the way. A temporary person or a part-time person is there usually for a project, and then they're in and they're out. A specialist might come in and help me. I'm going to come in and help you implement something, or I'm going to come in and help you write your business plan. Well, that's great for that moment in time, but I'm going to need a constant resource over the long term. So a fractional person might be, hey, I'm only going to have my CFO for 8 hours a month. Well, you only need a CFO for 8 hours a month. You probably only need a CFO for 8 hours a quarter if you're at less than $1 million. I mean, there's not a lot going on in that organization. You're so much in the operations. Once you start growing and you're not in the operations and you need more strategy on a very consistent basis because the business is more complex, then you need a CFO much more often. A controller is making sure everything is put in place. You have your processes, your procedures, you get all your accounting done correctly. Well, you don't need a controller full time when you're a smaller company. You only need one to come in maybe a day a week or a couple days a month. Close the books, get the reports out, get field phone calls from your bookkeeper or your office manager, whoever's inputting the information, making sure it's getting input correctly, and then gathering the information from your sales and your operations, and then putting it into a monthly, weekly report and putting that out. Well, you don't need a full-time person for that. Bookkeeper, the same thing. You may only have 100 to 500 transactions in a month. Well, a good bookkeeper can get through that in a day. So it's just, what do you need? And we're going to fill that role. And a fractional person is a permanent or semi-permanent member of your team that's going to be there with you for a long time.
Thank you. Yeah, I understood it when I talked to you a few times, but the very first time I heard it, it was a little bit confusing because it's just not a term the business world is used to yet, although it's a perfect description of it. So thanks a bunch. Does anybody else have a question for Scott?
Debbie, I can see you staring at me there. You got anything? Nothing. All right.
Yeah, no. I'm not even sure Debbie's awake yet. She might still be working on her first cup of coffee.
I guarantee Debbie is awake right now. She's one of those that gets up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, super early.
Yeah, like me, only just don't talk to me before 7, please, if you can help it. Not even my cats try and do that. Mike, Marcia, you have questions for either one of you?
No, I think Impact CFO Services is pretty much says what Scott does.
Yeah.
Good points though, Scott. I appreciate. Yeah, it's not, my business, but it always helps me to understand other people's businesses and know where they're coming from and what their needs are. So yeah, everything makes total sense.
Yeah, I appreciate Scott. First off, kind of being a little more specific on specialist equals consultant. That was when we first started. My coffee hadn't kicked in yet, so that was a good thing to kind of figure out early on. And then I really liked what you said about silos. I'm a recovering silo addict from my previous company, where the entire company over 29 states was siloed, and it felt like people were rowing different directions at all times. And what we found was that one group's KPIs were completely at odds with another group's, and they were actually, even though they worked for the same company, they were like mortal business enemies because of how they're, what they were measured by. So that that spoke to me just because I came off a company that did that. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, you need to have somebody that's it's usually, it's oddly enough, it is the CFO in most companies that oversee all those KPIs, or at the very least, there somebody in that department is making sure. And the CFO sees everything in a company, even more than the CEO, because the CEO, um, someone described it to me great one time. They're the only position in the company that has 1 foot in the company and 1 foot out of the company, because they are always looking, how do I grow? And they're working with outside partners most of the time. And so they have kind of this split view of the company. Well, the CFO is your right hand person that's going to be, hey, how is the business operating? And since the CFO gets to see everything, that is the person you want to go to, because the head of the operations is only seeing operations. The head of the IT or technology is only seeing that, and the CFO has to see everything, or otherwise you can't do your job. Anyway, yeah.
Great
And the first
question.
hire is scary too. That is, for every business owner, that very first hire is the most scary thing to do when you're hiring. And then the second one gets a little bit better, and then the third one gets a little bit better. But that first one is like, because there's so many things you have to do for that first person, and you don't understand. Oh, and here's the other thing I was gonna say on that 10-year plan. If you just want to have a lifestyle business, that's okay. But all of your outside consultants or specialists that you work with, because you're going to have a CPA firm, you have an attorney, you have a banker, you have all these people that you already contract with, they all have to know that you just want a lifestyle business, because they might try to set you up to grow and to get bigger. And this is going to be an added cost that you don't need because you just want a lifestyle business. So you got to let everybody else know, I just want a lifestyle business, leave me alone. And that's okay. But you have to make sure other people know that too.
Oh, that's a great comment. I love that. Love it. That's not the right word, but anyway, thank you very much for giving us a talk. Kathy, did you have any more comments on anything that Scott said that you wanted to add to what you were talking about?
That was a great presentation. Thank you. We worked together very well, and we didn't talk until this morning. So good job. It's interesting that you've got all of these different pieces that can come alongside someone as they're moving from solopreneur to a company with multiple employees. So it's wonderful to know that you're there. And you're answering the question of the fractional employee is a very good answer in that regard. I have used the analogy with some of my clients that a fractional person working in the company is kind of like a timeshare. You are renting that particular week in Hawaii for each year in January. You are renting that employee for X number of hours per month so that you know that that amount of time is there for you to use. But they're not an employee, and they're kind of a regular contractor, but at a smaller amount. So good definition, sir.